We're very excited to introduce Kadir from the Institute of Climate and Environmental Governance. So over to you.
Thank you very much. And then thank you to the organizers for introducing me. I'm from ISEC. ISEC is an organization that is dedicated to promoting climate and environmental governance through community level research, advocacy, and feminist participatory action research. This is our project, which focused on women's voices in coastal climate adaptation, basically initiated around between September 2024, and then it entered this year. Mostly Ghana is one of the most climate vulnerable coastal communities, which place women at the center of research. This project placed women at the center of research, leadership, and advocacy for climate resilience. We worked closely with community women leaders, peer researchers, local groups, with general support from GEDA, to try to advocate and then center women voices in climate resilience policy initiatives. Ghana's coastal regions are some of the most climate vulnerable in West Africa, and as I indicated earlier on. Sea level rises, erosion, and flooding are no longer distant threats. They are everyday realities we live with. For women, these impacts are deeply personal because they are more responsible for food, water, family care, while also contributing to the fragile livelihoods such as fishing, farming, and trading within these coastal settings, which reminds us why amplifying women's voices in climate adaptation is not only urgent, but it is essential and a necessity. The primary objectives for the project was clearly 4 objectives, which first, we sought to document how climate change specifically affects women in livelihoods, health, and household survival. Secondly, we sought to identify the adaptation strategies women are already leading, which is often unrecognized in formal policy planning issues. And then thirdly, to assess the barriers preventing women from taking part in climate decision-making, and also to explore how intersectionality, age, disability, poverty, and education intersects to create different vulnerability. These objectives ensured a comprehensive and gender-sensitive understanding of climate impacts in these coastal zones. Our approach was grounded in the feminist participatory action research, a method that shifts power to women themselves. We began by training about 12 women as peer researchers within the Soviet communities. These women then led focus, in addition to us, led focus group discussions, storytelling cycles, and participatory mapping, ensuring the research reflected the real and lived experiences or realities within these coastal areas. Finally, the findings were taken back to the communities for validation. We had 2 validation workshops, and then a collective reflection of the findings. This was not just the research itself, it was a process of empowerment that through engagement and local advocacies that we did. Women moving from being unheard to becoming leaders and knowledge bearers, which captures the heart of the project. We made sure the project produced tangible and lasting outputs. This included the peer researcher training I indicated. We developed a manual for the training and also a comprehensive final report that we presented in a concise policy brief with clear recommendations. At the community level, we also co-created 2 action plans, one in Keita, the Keita district, and one in Ada East. To ensure a wider visibility, we've produced infographics, short video testimonials in a documentary format featuring women voices. We also organized 2 regional workshops for the validations that are indicated, where women spoke directly to local policymakers, and we also shared the results through both traditional and digital media. Together, these deliverables ensured the impact of this project, which goes far beyond its implementation period. The research we led revealed that women face the harshest impacts of climate change in these coastal communities. First, livelihoods are collapsing. Fishing, salt mining, and farming activities, which women depended on for survival, are no longer reliable due to climate change impacts. In Angola, for example, women shared how the prices of fish currently has skyrocketed. One of the women engaged indicated that previously we would buy fish for at least 15 Ghana cedis, approximately $1.2. But now the same amount sells for about 120 Ghana cedis. That is approximately $10 now. We can't afford to buy, and we do nothing. Nobody can pay the higher prices we must sell it for after buying from the coastal boundaries from the fishermen or the fisher flocks. Secondly, women's health is under strain. In KG, for example, women carry heavy stones to build makeshift sea defenses, leading to spinal problems and illness. One of the women indicated, we carry stones to block the water, but it hurts our back and make us sick. And also, thirdly, what the research revealed was that women shoulder the invisible work of caregiving, food rationing, and these gendered burdens make clear why women must be at the center of adaptation solutions when it comes to climate impacts. Women's agency and traditional knowledge. Despite many challenges, women are not just victims of climate change. They are the unheard leaders and innovators when it comes to climate solutions due to their traditional knowledge and agency within the scope of climate change activities. They draw on this traditional ecological knowledge. For example, in Alonga, women explain how morning mist predicts calm seas, which guides fishing activities within this coastal zone. Also, women also led collective adaptation efforts. In Kijakope, they take matters into their own hands. For instance, one of them indicated that we can't wait for the local assembly. We take out our tools and dig the gutters ourselves so water can pass in order to avoid flooding when especially during the peak raining season. At the household level, women ration food, manage scarce water, and participate in saving groups to survive repeated shocks from climate impacts. These examples demonstrates women's resilience, agency, and leadership, which strengthen that must be recognized. Their initiatives or voices must be recognized and supported in formal climate policy initiatives. Although women are at the front line of climate adaptation, there are barriers which excluded women from formal participation in decision making. In Kita, for example, women told us that we are not called when they discuss the sea defense or fishing issues. Only the men or the male go to those meetings. Cultural and social norms also silence women. In Azizania, women shared that if you speak among community groupings, people say you are a disrespectful woman. because of the traditional and cultural norms within these societies. And beyond gender, intersectional factors also make it even harder for younger women or female or women with disabilities and single mothers to face unique risks and then are rarely considered in planning issues. These barriers mean women's knowledge and leaderships are undervalued, and even though they are essential to community survival. Our research covers 2 districts, as I indicated. In Keta district, the crisis is gradual but relentless. Coastal erosion, tidal waves, and salt water intrusion. Women describe how homes are repeatedly destroyed. As one woman indicated that the sea takes away their home, their houses away. We build and it also comes back again. And then the pathway to actions, we recommended that it is essential for women's knowledge to be integrated in policy action planning and policy making. Also, building their capacity is very essential in initiating inclusive climate action plans development, and also invest in climate readiness, which led to the personal project that we initiated because of the small grants, the finance from the small grants. The personal project premise on why we can no longer afford to treat resilience as an afterthought, and why adaptation must move from the sidelines to the very center of our response to climate crisis. When it floods and drought or storms hit, it is resilience and adaptation that determine whether communities recover or collapse. Yet despite their importance, adaptation and resilience funding remains on the margins of climate finance. Let's take a closer look at the situation in Ghana regarding climate or disaster-related activities and funding. Nearly about 37% of activities in Ghana are focused on readiness projects. These are initiatives aimed at preparing communities or systems to withstand future impacts, essentially proactive and then preventive measures. However, despite this significant focus on readiness, in terms of activities, only about 3% of the funding actually goes towards these readiness projects. This is a stark imbalance. The vast majority of the finance resources are directed towards adaptation or response projects that deal with the impacts after they occur. And then adaptation projects often received the bulk of funding, building sea defense walls, irrigation system, and renewable infrastructure. These are all important, but without readiness, the systems that plan, prepare, and build capacity, every shock can erase these adaptation years of the progress that the countries or indigenous countries have made. In Ghana, if Ghana shifts the finance towards readiness, we will benefit from 3 essential opportunities. First, the fiscal stability will be protected. Fewer resources are drained in recovering. And secondly, disaster losses shrink. Also, adaptation projects become more sustainable. Investment in infrastructure will last longer and deliver greater value. So ultimately, investing in readiness will empower Ghana and then the sub-region to navigate its climate crossroad with strength and sustainability. Thank you very much.
So I'll pass on to Mr. Kochi. As mentioned, Mr. Kochi comes from the organization Environment Conservation Organization for Afghanistan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Claudia and other colleagues for the flexibility. And the grant that is a small grant for Afghanistan is Gender, Water, and Climate Mobility in Afghanistan. The project is in Kabul, the part of Afghanistan, and also capital of Afghanistan, and also in Bamiyan. I want to have an overview of the context. The duration just started in May, and we are at the end of this grant. And in Bamiyan, we had different location. I can show here in Kabul first. We have different location. We mapped and also we worked, and we had water-related points, and also we had differentiation with male and female, with community leaders, with de facto authorities. And for example, in different parts of Kabul, we sampled, and I will come later to that. And this is the map of Bamiyan, and we moved different districts of Bamiyan, and we compared the data, we interpreted the data, and we will come at the end of this. Just before to my graph, and also to explain, there is a general update. In Afghanistan, the impact of climate change is increasing usually in spring and in winter, and most people are very affected by hundreds of culture lands and different area and people and parts of Afghanistan, especially in central part of Afghanistan, eastern part of Afghanistan, and also western Afghanistan and northern Afghanistan. The most affected part of is central Afghanistan. And also at the same time, there is competition over natural resources. When climate change impact and the competition of our natural resources will increase, and there is social dispute among inter-social conflict among community, which is lack of natural resources like water, especially water for surviving. And recently in 1st of August, when we were in Addis Ababa, there was heavy earthquake around 6 magnitude, and eastern part of Afghanistan, Kunar, was destroyed, and more than 2,205 individuals were killed, and 3,640 people were injured, and more than 5,000 of house was destroyed. And this was this side of natural disaster and climate change impact. This was something that now Afghanistan is suffering from this. And also, according to WP in Afghanistan recently, more than 23 million of people are affected by and faced with hungry in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, this is climate change impact and unemployment in the area, and also irregular rainfall in climate change. More than millions of people are returned from Pakistan and Iran, and there is women bans in Afghanistan. Currently, they are under pressure. And ECOFI is closely implementing this grant, and we are at the final stage. We implemented successfully with different stakeholders, community leaders, with different women leaders during in the with community leaders, and also we are valid letters with from de facto authority, and we are closely coordinating with them for the implementation of this grant. And also we are at the end stage of this grants. And also our female quota usually sometimes they are reaching in different provinces for the implementation of this grant. Water quality is just not just environmental issue. This is crisis of health, and also economic instability, and also social conflict in the community. During this season in Afghanistan, even after 5 or 6 houses, one house have deep well, and there is rush of the people, they are lying for this drinking water, and there is social dispute among community, among people, they are just surviving for the waters. And also since last, I can say from 2000, there is the water quality and the water groundwater level is going deep to deep. There is our measurement in 2025 based on the survey, based on the research. The groundwater level was around 20 meters in different areas, especially in different part of Kabul. But now, based on our research and our survey now in Afghanistan, based on this GEDA grants, we find it more than 120 meters. Even in some districts, it's reached 180 meters, and there is no water. After some days, there will be no water in Afghanistan. So millions or 7 million, or we can say 10 million people, they are living in Kabul, they were faced with groundwater, and the people were displaced from Kabul. People in Bamiyan, women in Bamiyan, and also in Kabul, we are working with this closely to just show them the water quality and what's water and what's the water quality and what affect this their health. And there is salinity waters with the farmers, and we will come later to that. Even the small girls have the chance to have greener future, and we have to give them chance, and they are participating our session in Bamiyan with women. And we conducted many sessions with women and also with community leader women, we can see, and also with madrasa through these small grants. Impact of climate change in Afghanistan. I was exactly in this area in end of 2024. There was the temperature, rising temperature impact directly climate change, and there was heavy precipitation in the area. Even we have the example of one house, and they lost 24 or 23 members of their family in one day. There was heavy floods. Thousands of kilometers of hectares of the plants are destroyed. Even in this house, I was there at that time. In this house, we just had one girl, and she was alive from this heavy precipitation. This is the situation, unfortunately, community face with this. And this is the truth, and for no longer, and just this is the reality for the today, that climate change affected our country, and the people are very faced with their challenges. As I mentioned earlier, that we reflected the voice of the community leaders in Kabul, in Bamiyan, and show them the water quality, and they ask that please reflect our voices to international donors and international stage, that please work with the Afghan community and also with local NGOs to just sometimes there's political issues, but climate change is not something to be related with the political, and they ask that please reflect our voices and international NGOs and also donors to just have a resilience lead community mechanism for this, and also strengthening local level policies for climate change impact in Afghanistan. Partners and also ECOPA are targeting us now, that we are working closely with surface water management, dams, trenches, and also pools for groundwater management, and also for strengthening the water quality, and also groundwater management and drinking water supply community, that what's the water salinity and what's the water total dissolved in water, and what's the pH of water and how you can use the water. This is something that we are working with the community in local level, and also public awareness raising session about about climate change, and also data collection that we did, and also all these activities beside of data collection that we did for this water and climate mobility in Afghanistan. We also encourage the community. Even we have directly around 1,500 community leaders to show them what's the water and how the water, standard water irrigation, and also work with the community for their opportunities. The salinity of water in Kabul and Bamiyan, and we faced with this, and we show the community, the farmer, that how they can deal, how they can use this water. And also there is some other class. For example, there is a question: would you drink this cup of tea? That the electric conductivity is more than 2000, and the range for this is from 0 to 500 is excellent quality, and also more than 500 till 550 is acceptable range. But after that, we had the water for drinking for the community more than 2063 for this electric conductivity. We sampled in one area in Kabul, and this is 15 district in Kabul. Just the last graph, it show 5,500 the water electric conductivity. People use this water Even they are not aware that what's going on. Look, that there is from, we can say, from 300 to 500, the water quality is good for crops. After that, even crops cannot accelerate this, tolerate this kind of salinity, we can say. And we have this water around 5,500. Still people using this water. This was one sample that we took it and we compared it with other data from, for example, with Bamyan and with other districts. The water ranges completely high compared to standard water. Even we can see we cannot use this water for the crops or plants, but people are using this water. This is the quality of water. In Bamyan district, and also we work with the community that how they can use this water for their drinking, and also how they can supply, and how they can use this water for the plants. And this is just some things this directly impact their products, agriculture products. They use too much potatoes, and also they directly affected this their products. And what is needed for now, just target the urgent support to Kabul and also to Bamyan provinces, improve the irrigation management, that they use groundwater for the irrigation to know them, to give them awareness that this is clean water, not used for the agriculture purposes, and also flush the salinity from the water and show them, and also community-based elect conductivity ground depth tracking to the safe priority of the wells that they are using. I think this is the last one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time and for your patience.
For purposes of time, we're going to pass on immediately to our colleagues, Penina and Samuel, who are here representing the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. So over to you.
Okay, I would like to thank the GEDA team and the Data for Change team for this opportunity to be able to present our small grants project. My name is Penina Njogu, representing the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development, RCMD, which is based in Nairobi, Kenya. RCMD is an intergovernmental organization with 20 contracting member states in the East and South African region. Our services include project implementation in key thematic areas, including agriculture and food security, disaster risk reduction, climate services and adaptation, land degradation, biodiversity conservation. Also, other services include research and development, working with communities that support gender and environment data, as well as capacity building and training to the member states and beyond. So for our small grants project, we are focusing on empowering local women in wetland inventory mapping in Nalubaga wetland in Uganda by using a feminist participatory action research approach using user-friendly digital tools. This is a project that is implemented through GEDA in collaboration with the Regional Development Initiative, which is a non-profit organization based in Kampala, Uganda, that is committed to the conservation and the restoration of wetlands, and also the National and Environment Management Authority in Uganda. So to provide some context, according to the National Environment and Management Authority in Uganda, around 14% of Uganda's surface area is wetlands, and these ecosystems are among the most productive areas in the East African region, providing water, food, and livelihoods to the local community. But over the past 3 decades, these ecosystems have been degraded through encroachment from population pressure, pollution, and even increased flood risks. So this has an impact on communities, especially on women and children who depend on these ecosystems for farming, for crafts, and even household water supply. You find that in these communities, women are often excluded from data collection and even decision making that involve these ecosystems. So our project was focusing on changing this by empowering the local community, building their skills so that they can be able to map and monitor and store and restore these wetland ecosystems. So our project objectives was centered around strengthening and building the capacity of these women to be able to map and monitor their wetland, being able to build local ownership, not just mapping, including the women, but also making them, involving them in the core design and every step of the process of restoration effort. Inclusive conservation, we were also looking at how these data that we are collecting can be able to inform policy and planning, and also to be able to build community resilience. So at this stage, we had not done our data collection, and I'm happy to share that we did. Sorry, Claudia, that slide is not included here. Yeah, I wanted to say that we went to Uganda for data collection, and we were able to engage the local community to be able to share their insights and their perspective and their lived experiences with regard to how they're utilizing the wetland and how even restoration efforts, what they mean to them and for their families. So we were able to train the local women in using Survey 123, which is a mobile app platform that is able to collect both spatial and qualitative data. We were able to train the women on how they can be able to collect data on wetland vegetation type, the biodiversity that is present on the wetland, some degradation hotspots, and also even how the wetland is being utilized in terms of cultural sites, and even the kind of threats that are facing the wetlands with regard to pollution and dumping of solid waste, and even their perspectives on how they would like to see the wetland, for example, in like 10 years to come. So it was a really great experience hearing from them, from those that have lived here for some time and have seen the wetland change and how they would even want to be part of the restoration efforts. So wetland ecosystems are often linked to food and also nutrition. So when wetlands are degraded, you find that this has an effect on the food, the nutrition, because, for example, if you look at some of the activities in these wetlands include fishing, and they're able to get the fish from the wetlands and supplement their diet. They're also able to use water from the wetlands to be able to irrigate and farm, have some small scale farming that they can be able to cultivate vegetables to supplement their diet. And when these ecosystems are degraded, it has an effect on both the environmental aspect as well as the nutrition side. So that is why I decided to focus on looking at how climate change affects nutrition in Africa. I decided to use the consumer price index, consumer price food index, which is an indicator that tracks the average change of food prices over time, showing how much or how less the communities are able to pay compared to a previously established baseline. For example, using this Food and Agriculture Organization data, the baseline year was 2015. So this doesn't reflect the real cost of consumption. It just helps us to track the relative change over the next decade. So there are several aspects that affect food prices, but we all agree that climate change, from droughts and floods, they destroy harvest, they destroy infrastructure, and this has an effect on the food security and even nutrition. So 3 years from the baseline, we see that if you look at South Sudan, you can see that there has been a change from the baseline, and also some other countries across Africa. So families are forced to rely on costly imports, just as the food prices increase. So in 2021, you can see some stability in some countries, and that contrasts sharply with some countries like Sudan, South Sudan, Zimbabwe, and Angola, where the consumer price index is quite high. And this means that from the 2015 baseline, if, for example, a certain food item costs $1, and then the increase is 300 times, that means that that food item at 2021 would be like $300, which is really high. And this makes, for example, our communities opt for cheap starches and they forego something like vegetables or proteins so that they can be able to at least afford a meal, and they forego the proteins and the vegetables because they will be costly and will be adding to the burden of food. Okay, so in 2024, like 10 years from the baseline, there is a very big spike in food prices, especially for South Sudan. There was an increase of 300 times from the baseline, and that was also reflected in several other countries like Nigeria, Egypt, Angola, Malawi, and the food prices were really high. So I also used this data from the food prices for nutrition to supplement the consumer price index data, and it showed that climate change is deepening an inequality gap in Africa. And at 2024, around 930 million Africans could not afford a healthy diet. And in this case, a healthy diet is a diet that is able to meet the energy and nutritional requirements and being able to protect people from diet-related diseases. And to see that around 930 million people could not afford a healthy diet, this is quite alarming. And I think this is something that is supposed to encourage us to be able to even see and what measures we can be able to put in place to be able to curb this situation. So that's why our call was that we should be able to make healthy diets affordable for everyone. And we can do this by monitoring food prices and investing in nutrition smart policies and using data to be able to build resilient food systems. So once we are able to restore and conserve wetlands, they can be able to help us to supplement our diet and also to be able to build community resilience. Thank you. I would like to invite Samuel to present his personal project.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Thanks so much, my colleague, Penina. As we have seen on the small grant project, that wetlands are vital because they serve as important local sources of water, food biodiversity, of course, natural climate regulation. So there's no time. In sub-Saharan African, women and girls spend 40 billion hours a year collecting water. So that's astonishing that a lot of time is spent by women when they're collecting water. And of course, this much time spent could have been used instead in investing, maybe in studying. Of course, girls also earning an income for women, of course, support their families also maybe in seminars also kind of stuff on leadership roles. And now drawing down to Kenya is an example. It's a huge burden, and it's because more than half of women fetch water daily compared to just one in men, as the graph shows in Kenya. And on average, Kenyan women spend nearly 4 times longer than men on water collection, training opportunities for education, of course, also work, and also well-being. So women spend significantly more time than men, highlighting the gender burden, of course, of water collection. And while access to better, drinking water has improved nationally, rising from 45% in 2000 to 66% today. Almost 1 in 5 people still rely on safe surface water. Of course, you find in the urban areas, they're a bit cool, but most of the women in the rural areas still lack, better water to use or to drink. So access still remains unequal in rural Kenya, of course, because nearly 1 in 5 families walk over 30 minutes just to fetch water. So you can see that disparity. That's the reality of water collection. Anonymous community member said, I spend hours every day collecting water instead of going to school. So they just to highlight the disparity. So my call as the ASMRD is to free women's time, and of course with the ASMRD turning data into dignity. Thank you.
We're going to pass on now to la Ruta del Clima, so to Angélica and to María Paula.
Bueno, muy buenos días. Espero que estén todos y todas muy bien. Les cuento un poco de la Ruta del Clima. Nosotros somos una organización latinoamericana que se encarga de hacer investigaciones relacionadas a cambio climático. Estamos basados en Costa Rica y hoy les vamos a contar un poco sobre los proyectos que hemos desarrollado durante este fellowship con WIDO. Bueno, resulta que cuando pensamos en cambio climático y en los datos que normalmente se reportan, pensamos generalmente en lo que son afectaciones económicas. Entonces, como podemos ver en esta diapositiva, em, durante el 2016 y 2018, al menos en Costa Rica, se reportaron pérdidas de más de 2 trillones de dólares que se relacionan a lo que son impactos del cambio climático. Y esto representa en promedio lo que son $400,000 por habitante en esta pérdida durante este periodo de 3 años. Esto según los datos de la plataforma Desinventar. Y pues sí, como sabemos, este es un dato muy importante y una pérdida bastante grande y muy significativa. Pero también tenemos que pensar en que se está perdiendo una parte muy importante de la historia si únicamente nos dedicamos a ver lo que son los datos económicos. Entonces esto nos lleva a la pregunta de ¿dónde están los impactos no económicos que están siendo causados por la crisis climática? Resulta que la mayoría de bases de datos se enfocan principalmente en datos económicos, mostrándonos únicamente la mitad de la verdadera historia. Y es por eso que desde la Ruta del Clima hemos desarrollado una aplicación móvil que se llama P51, que nos permite trabajar directamente con las comunidades en lo que es el reporte de daños y pérdidas, incluyendo sus variables no económicas, así logrando hacer visible lo que otras bases de datos más amplias están ignorando. Y es por eso que tenemos este ejemplo de cómo P51 ha permitido generar reportes desde Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala y Honduras, dando a conocer que hay una mayor cantidad de afectaciones no económicas en las comunidades. Con esto nos referimos a la cohesión social, la unión comunitaria, la salud, el bienestar, la naturaleza. Podemos ver en naranja la cantidad de reportes de afectaciones no económicas que se han hecho por país y en gris las cantidades de afectaciones económicas. Acá tenemos un comentario de una persona de Honduras que nos decía que todos estos factores se han combinado en contra de la comunidad, que se está viendo afectada su presión, también se está afectando el estrés, la pobreza que hay en la comunidad, les hace pensar en qué van a hacer mañana para poder sobrellevar esta crisis, cómo van a manejar las condiciones del mar si no pueden ir a pescar, cómo van a traer comida a sus familias. Adelante. Y esto nos hace pensar en que si no estamos viendo toda esta historia que está quedando ocultada en estas otras bases de datos, estamos perdiendo una perspectiva muy importante desde las comunidades y es necesario mostrar estas realidades. Y por eso es que invitamos también a que puedan unirse a construir estas bases de datos desde sus comunidades y pues demandar lo que son las reparaciones climáticas que merecen nuestras comunidades. Y bueno, a partir de este proyecto personal que acabo de presentar, les cuento en la siguiente diapositiva un poco sobre nuestro proyecto que hemos desarrollado desde la Ruta del Clima en conexión con GEDA y con Ruido, que se llama Voices in Data, Voces en los Datos de Género y Pérdidas Climáticas. Entonces, bueno, este proyecto se trató de diseñar lo que fue un módulo de indicadores con una perspectiva de ciencia ciudadana y de género, que lo que ha hecho es permitirnos identificar cuáles son esas brechas diferenciadas en los impactos climáticos que están sufriendo las comunidades en el contexto de daños y pérdidas climáticas y datos comunitarios. Y le pago el pase a mi compañera Angélica para que nos pueda terminar de contar del proyecto.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Un gusto saludarles y tal vez contarles un poco de cómo fue que logramos diseñar este módulo de datos. Para poder realizar este proceso, iniciamos con una revisión documental. Hicimos una revisión de más o menos 32 documentos. Entre esos habían reportes, informes, otras bases de datos. Realizamos una validación con 7 personas expertas en el campo tanto de data como de género para poder identificar cuáles eran precisamente esas brechas que teníamos que visibilizar frente a impactos climáticos, principalmente en daños y pérdidas. Y llevamos estos enfoques y estas categorías las llevamos a la validación con la comunidad de Costa de Pájaros, que es una comunidad de costarricense del Pacífico. A partir de estas validaciones y revisiones, creamos el módulo con un enfoque de género y además generamos una herramienta de colección de datos. Esta herramienta se generó en Cobo y lo que hace es replicar en parte el app P51, pero integra entonces 2 categorías más que no estaban en el app, que son cuidado, salud reproductiva y atención en riesgos. Y además, en las categorías que ya existen, generó algunas opciones de recolección de data con enfoque de género. Esta herramienta se llevó a visitas de campo y se implementó. Y se está generando un documento con los resultados y los análisis. A partir de estos resultados y análisis en el espacio que pudimos construir en conjunto con la beca de GEDA, logramos triangular la información de la herramienta e información de institutos costarricenses, en este caso el Instituto Nacional de Estadística y Ciencia, el INEC. Y logramos identificar que en Costa Rica las mujeres están enfrentando los impactos climáticos por cambio climático, y cuando están enfrentando estos impactos climáticos, sus horas de cuidado son de más de 24 horas, es decir, de más de un día. Entonces, identificamos gracias a datos de la ENAO, que es la Encuesta Nacional de Hogares, se realiza de manera anual, que en la última década la proporción de mujeres en Costa Rica que está reportando estar vinculada con tareas de cuidados y, por ejemplo, de niños, personas con discapacidad, adultos mayores, es más o casi que el doble que la de hombres. Y vimos también que esto es muy importante, un aumento en época de COVID. Entonces, para el 2024, las mujeres en Costa Rica gastaban alrededor de 30 horas por semana en tareas de cuidado y los hombres reportaban más o menos 18 horas. Esto quiere decir que, por cada hombre que gastaba 24 horas en tareas de cuidado, 27 mujeres estaban haciendo lo mismo por semana. Gracias a la encuesta que pudimos generar con el CO, logramos también identificar que personas que han pasado por eventos de cambio climático están reportando que tienen afectaciones en sus tareas de cuidado cada vez que están viviendo un impacto climático de evolución lenta o de emergencia. Y lo que logramos ver es que de 45 personas que contestaron, 22 mujeres reportaron que están teniendo un aumento en sus tareas de cuidado versus solo un hombre. Entonces, solo un hombre reporta que tiene un aumento en sus tareas de cuidado, 22 mujeres reportan que tienen aumentos. Dentro de la misma herramienta dejamos un espacio para que las personas puedan hacer comentarios y de estos comentarios salían estas citas que, por ejemplo, nos dicen que durante las épocas de lluvia extensa en Costa Rica, para una mujer es más difícil llevar a su hijo con discapacidad a la escuela y no tienen otros medios de transporte y sus redes de cuidado son bastante disminuidas. También, como lo mencionaba Pau anteriormente, se menciona no solo como temas no económicos, por ejemplo, el tema del calor está afectando la salud y la preocupación que eso genera de no poder realizar las tareas de cuidado que se están haciendo en los hogares. Entonces, la última es muy importante, que es que deben de deben de tener mucho cuidado a la hora de transportar a los niños en diferentes espacios con la preocupación de los deslizamientos, además de que la comida es escasa, entonces esto les genera demasiado estrés y no tienen soluciones para esto. Entonces, lo que quisimos visibilizar con este proyecto y este Small Grant es que cuando los impactos climáticos están golpeando nuestras comunidades, estamos generando que las brechas de género ya existentes aumenten. En el caso del cuidado, el día de cuidado de una mujer en Costa Rica en este momento es mayor de 24 horas y esto puede llegar a aumentar más cada vez que enfrenten un impacto climático. Entonces, gracias a este proyecto estamos generando un documento en donde estamos logrando no solo analizar el tema de cuidado, sino también temas de salud y también temas de educación y otras brechas, y va a estar libre en aproximadamente 2 semanas. Entonces, invitarles a compartir el documento cuando esté listo y ese sería nuestro espacio. Muchas gracias.
We're going to open now for questions, for any thoughts, any reactions from all the participants here. We know you saw several presentations, so we'd love to hear your thoughts. We saw Tatiana had a question for ICEG, which I'm happy to share, that said, Tatiana had to jump off, but said, what will happen now with all the great qualitative data that you've presented on? How is it being used, and how will it be used? So Kadir, if I can pass on to you for that question. It says, what will happen now with all the great qualitative data that you have presented on? How is it being used, and how will it be used?
Okay, thank you very much. Currently, we are in exploiting the data for advocacy. We are engaging some of the primary institutions responsible for climate issues in Ghana, and also the community leaders themselves. We are engaging with them, institutions such as the Ministry of State for Climate and Sustainability, Climate Change and Sustainability, as well as MESTI, Ministry of Science, Environment and Technology. And we are also engaging currently with Environmental Protection Agency to try to develop an more advocacy document for more visibility and engagement with communities. These are currently what we are doing, and then we hope that we would advance in that engagement from the policy level and also from the community level. Thank you.
Perfect, Kadir. Thank you so much. That is, I think, very clear. And we'll make sure to share that answer with Tatiana as well. Now, opening up the floor to the rest of the audience, as Katie mentioned in the chat, we're excited to hear questions or any reflections on what you've heard, methodology, challenges, lessons, things that it stirred up from your own roles as well and within your own organizations as well. Sandra, por favor.
So I was wondering, right now I'm working assessing a gender strategy in GEDA, where I just started. And one of the challenges that I've met, or that I've found not only here, but also in my previous experience, is how to really mainstream the gender perspective in the monitoring part. Because most of the times the gender approach or intersectional approaches are integrated within the activities or the capacity building, or gender disaggregated data is generated but in very vague or superficial levels. But when it comes to monitoring, and even more so to make the monitoring phase participatory, then it gets really challenging. And then, for example, there are some standard indicators that are generated, but they really don't get to be gender responsive, for example. So my question goes into, how do you really how do you face this type of challenges in the monitoring phase? How do you go about it? And my question goes to Ruta del Clima, but I would also be really interested in getting to know the other project's perspective on this. Thank you.
Yo creo que lo que es muy importante es verlo como en los diferentes niveles, y algo que nos dejó el proceso de revisión documental y de validación y demás es entender justamente que estamos generando muchas veces indicadores transformativos sin tener la base, que es lo mínimo, que es la desagregación. Entonces, en el caso del módulo en sí, empezamos con lo básico, que es poder desagregar la información de diferentes categorías, dígase salud, educación, trabajo, temas de cuidados, y solo poder desagregar eso nos va a generar poder triangular alguna información. En el caso de Costa Rica en sí, tenemos muy buenas estadísticas a nivel nacional, pero hemos topado en la región con algunas dificultades a la hora de encontrar estadísticas desagregadas socioeconómicas, ¿verdad? Entonces, también ahí, justo por eso, en la construcción de la herramienta hicimos también un tema de perfil. Entonces, tenemos un perfil de la persona que empieza a contestar, anónimo, de rangos de edades, de ingresos económicos, de qué tipo, cómo ingresan estos economía del hogar y demás, justo para poder perfilar y desagregar. Algo que mencionaba, por ejemplo, en los comentarios la compañera anterior, ¿verdad? Identificar si es una mujer de zona rural, de zona costera, de zona urbana, si es un hombre y cuáles son sus características, y a partir de ahí encontrar cómo le están afectando el cambio climático y cómo podemos triangular esto con otras datas. En temas de monitoreo y en temas de espacios, buenas prácticas que hemos generado es identificar con quién vamos a trabajar desde el inicio. Por ejemplo, vos mencionabas biodiversidad, entonces ver cuáles son estos grupos que están trabajando, poder tener una participación lo más equitativa posible. Pero bueno, en nuestro caso, por ejemplo, acá en Costa Rica, las personas que más están trabajando temas de cambio climático y ambiente suelen ser inclusive mujeres, ¿verdad? Entonces, como que en esa parte, la parte participación la tenemos check, pero también cómo va a ser esa participación, en qué horarios va a ser. La vamos a poner a las 11 de la mañana que los chicos están en la escuela y las mamás a las 11:30 tienen que ir a retirarlos. O sea, ¿cuál es esa estructura y cuáles son justo esas características que tenemos que tener para el espacio? Es una forma que hemos logrado para poder para poder enganchar inclusive a las personas que están participando. Ya tenemos unos años trabajando en las comunidades en las que trabajamos y tenemos las mismas participaciones, ¿verdad? Entonces justo eso hemos logrado con pequeñas cosas, cambiar el horario, identificar que no sea cercano a la hora del desayuno, almuerzo y cena, identificar que no sea cercano a las salidas de la escuela. Diferentes, ¿verdad? Como estos pequeños... son pequeños detalles que generan que las personas logren vincularse y logren realmente participar en el espacio, tener un espacio para niños. En el mismo espacio, si van a participar mujeres, principalmente en las comunidades, muchas veces las escuelas no están teniendo lecciones, entonces llevamos un espacio para que los chicos puedan participar y puedan estar ahí. Tratamos de no ir una sola persona por si alguien tiene que atender a los chicos para que las personas que estén en el espacio puedan estar presentes. Entonces, por ahí andan algunas de las acciones que hemos logrado para poder darle seguimiento. Y en temas de datos, justo por eso creamos la herramienta, porque lo que identificamos es que no hay, ¿verdad? Como indicadores con enfoque de género para daños y pérdidas.
Muchas gracias, Ángel, por tu respuesta.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your engagement. And it's been really lovely seeing the data stories presented again. I think just before we close, because I know we have a very short amount of time left, I just wanted to acknowledge something that made the fellowship so special for us at Data for Change, which is that when we started with really mixed levels of experience, mixed languages, mixed social and political contexts. But what we really ended up with was a real community of data practice that came alive in the in-person convening in Addis Ababa. It was a space where we all learned as much from each other as we did from the curriculum. And that was something that was really magical about the fellowship. For me, it was being able to learn so much about these different contexts of work and the challenges and demands, the availability and inavailability of data. And something that really came through was this curiosity, generosity, and kind of collaborative spirit that ultimately cut across that geography and background. So I think for us at Data for Change, that sense of shared purpose and of building something together is what we'll carry forward into the next round of the GEDA Fellowship. And just to say that this is just the beginning, and we can't wait to see how the community grows from here.
Thanks everybody for presenting, and congratulations. As Bea said, this is all work that has taken months of effort on part of our fellows in designing, thinking through what data is available publicly, how do you use it, how do you communicate it. So I'm really excited that you all got to share in that sort of joy of using data that at least I find it joyful. And I think it was a really great opportunity also to see how community-led projects through our small grants programs across different contexts and different countries are really important and critical to sort of visibilizing things that we don't always see in aggregate data or in large-scale projects, but also thinking through the importance of communicating that data. And that's really where that fellowship has come in and really strengthened, I think, all of our capacity. Even me, when I was in Addis with them, I learned so much from my colleagues at Data for Change, but also from all the fellows, and thinking through what are the ways in which we can make data translate to different audiences. How do we make people care about these issues? And that's something that's really important to us at GEDA, is thinking about data use in addition to data collection and making sure we expand our definitions and what we use. So we're really excited for the next round of our small grants program and our fellowship. And your comments have been really helpful. And thank you again, all of you, for engaging with us, to our presenters again, and thank you to our interpreters for helping us make this more inclusive. So thank you. And you'll hear more from us soon.